Okay, so in Hyper-V, there are three different kinds of virtual networks. Now, that's not to say you can only have three virtual switches. You can have as many virtual switches as you want, but they're all of one of these three types. External is what we would call a bridged switch. That is to say, it is actually tied to a NIC on the host machine. So hosts on that external virtual switch can reach the wire. The other two types are internal and private. Both of these are not connected to a physical NIC, cannot communicate outside the host. Internal is essentially a host-only network. That is to say, it can reach as far as the loopback of the host machine. Also, it can talk to other devices on that same internal switch. Private is the most restrictive, and it is essentially, it's like a LAN segment in VMware, which is to say, it can talk to other devices in the same LAN segment, but host-only mode doesn't even work. They are only talking to each other. The host's loopback is not a part of the conversation. And so let's see, it looks like this. So you've got you can add as many virtual switches as you want. You can choose their type. You can set a VLAN ID if you want. You can set some notes. Now, best practice is you give these things meaningful names, and give them meaningful names which would indicate their status. Notice also you've got on the external network, you've got a drop down here. So if you've got more than one NIC, you can choose which of those NICs it's using. Or if you've got a multi-port NIC, you may be able to choose which port on that multi-port NIC this thing is talking to. And you can enable management, enable management OSs to share the network adapter. You've got single root IO virtualization, which is SRIOV. I believe this allows that's sort of a network pair virtualization. Can only be configured when the virtual switch is created. So some of these choices you're going to have to make right off the bat. And of course, there's a remove button at the bottom. So if you want to take one out, you can do that. As another aspect of best practice, if you cannot, for whatever reason, make the name specific and meaningful, make sure the notes are specific and meaningful. Consult your, if you need a VLAN ID for whatever reason, either for virtual or for physical VLANs, make that. Now, if you need to tag these frames and the device you're going through can't tag them, you can do that VLAN tagging yourself right here. But understand it's not actually a normal thing for the host to do. The host generally does not care about VLAN tagging. And if you can't remember how that works, just ask me or look over your TCP/IP curriculum. Thanks. We've got one more video, the chapter summary, and we're done with chapter 5. We can begin to move on to chapter 6, which is let's see, chapter 6, which is, hold on, let me get it right here, working with the virtual machine manager. So we go from working with an individual Hyper-V host to working with the VMM and System Center and all of that to really control this. That's the point at which you'll take your Hyper-V, your server running Hyper-V, and promote it to a domain controller. Thanks, and I'll be right back.